You walk into a room you've never been in, and suddenly everything feels familiar. The conversation, the light, the exact way someone tilts their head. You're certain this has already happened. 10 seconds later, it vanishes. That's déjà vu. And what just went wrong inside your brain is extraordinary. It fabricated a memory of a moment that never occurred. Since 1876, scientists have been chasing this sensation, and they still cannot agree on what triggers it. 3 competing theories point to 3 different failures in your mind, and what they reveal about reality is stranger than the feeling itself. This feeling always begins in an ordinary instant, tying a shoe, reaching for a cup, or listening to a friend laugh. Suddenly, a wave of absolute certainty washes over you. This exact second has already been lived. The lighting, the background noise, the placement of objects on a table, and they all fit together like a perfect puzzle piece you have already held. It is incredibly vivid, bringing a sudden rush of electricity or a quiet shiver of unease. Yet even as the familiarity grips you, your conscious mind rebels. You know you have never stood in this hallway or heard this specific song in this room. Your brain splits screens, presenting a conviction that is impossible, alongside the cold logic that proves it wrong. And then, just as quickly as it took hold, the illusion dissolves. While this sudden event feels intensely isolating, it is incredibly common. Large-scale surveys show that roughly 2/3 of us experience this fleeting sensation at least once in our lives. It is a standard quirk of healthy, active minds rather than a medical warning sign. Yet these episodes do not target everyone equally. Reports cluster heavily in late adolescence and young adulthood, peaking between the ages of 18 and 35, before dropping to around 30% for people over 60. Active travelers, those with higher levels of education, and individuals who experience intense dreaming or high stress report these occurrences even more often. This demographic pattern reflects a highly active brain system at play. The regularity of these moments leaves us with an unresolved puzzle about how we construct our daily reality. When our minds briefly falter, does the glitch lie in our memory storage, our sensory perception, or some strange, mistimed combination of both? To understand this glitch, we have to look at how the brain splits its duties when we recognize the world around us. Think about walking into a local market and seeing a face that instantly strikes a chord. Before you can even name the person, a quiet voice in your head says, "I know them." A second later, your mind fills in the details. It is the pharmacist from down the street. This everyday occurrence reveals that memory relies on 2 separate tracks running in parallel. In 2004, researcher Alan S. Brown of Southern Methodist University published a landmark framework explaining this dual process theory. The first track is a rapid, automatic system responsible for generating a pure feeling of familiarity. This lightning-fast judgment is managed by a structure in the medial temporal lobe called the perirhinal cortex. It acts like a scanner, instantly flagging things as known. The second track is recollection, a slower, more deliberate process driven by the hippocampus. The hippocampus serves as the brain's librarian, searching the memory archives to retrieve the specific context, the who, what, where, and when. Usually these 2 systems work in harmony, but what happens when they fall out of step? Brown proposed that déjà vu is a source monitoring error. The perirhinal cortex fires a massive familiarity signal, crossing the threshold of certainty. Yet when the hippocampus searches the archives, it finds absolutely nothing. The brain registers the intense feeling of "I know this" without any supporting evidence of "from where." It is an inappropriate feeling of familiarity, a real emotion of knowing, but with a history that is completely missing. What if this uncanny feeling has nothing to do with memory storage, but instead stems from a simple timing error in how we construct our perception of the present? The brain does not process a visual scene as a single, unified instant. Instead, it splits incoming sensory data into parallel pathways, routing a fast, coarse image along one neural highway and a slower, highly detailed version along another. Normally, these streams arrive at their destination at the exact same millisecond, fusing together to form a seamless reality. But what happens if these parallel signals fall out of sync? Researchers Didier Collin and Martin G. Sanchez explored this sub-second temporal offset by presenting participants with rapid split-perception visual patterns. In these laboratory tests, a visual stimulus is flashed for a mere 30 milliseconds, followed by a brief blank delay of 80 to 150 milliseconds before the same image is presented a second time. When the interval is calibrated to this precise lag, the brain experiences a processing timing mismatch. It registers the first low-resolution glimpse entirely subconsciously. When the second full presentation arrives a fraction of a second later, it is flagged as a repeat encounter. This model reframes the entire experience from a false memory event into a perceptual timing glitch, a literal double-take occurring within our visual pathways. It offers a physical explanation for why an ordinary moment can feel twice lived, leaving us to wonder if the past has returned, or if our internal biological clock simply missed a beat. Imagine walking into an unfamiliar antique shop in a foreign city. You have never set foot in this town, let alone this building. Yet the instant you cross the threshold, a heavy blanket of recognition wraps around you. The trigger is not a specific object. Instead, the feeling comes from the entire space, the angle of the counter, the distance to the back wall, the way the light filters through a side window. Cognitive psychologist Ann Cleary of Colorado State University proposed that these atmospheric, highly spatial moments happen because our brains match whole configurations of layouts, even when we do not consciously realize it. This is Gestalt familiarity. Our brains code scenes using the parahippocampal gyrus and entorhinal cortex, mapping the structural relationships between physical elements. When a new environment matches the underlying skeleton of an old forgotten memory, the brain flags it as familiar. To test this in a laboratory, Cleary and her team designed virtual reality environments using the life simulation video game The Sims. In a 2012 study, participants first explored a virtual junkyard filled with scattered debris. Later, they walked through a completely different setting, a neatly manicured hedge garden. While the colors, textures, and objects were entirely new, the spatial layout of the hedge garden was an exact structural replica of the junkyard. Up to 35% of participants in highly immersive setups experienced sudden, vivid déjà vu. They felt they had been there before, despite knowing the garden was new. Strikingly, many also reported a strange sense of prediction, a fleeting conviction that they knew exactly what lay around the next corner, even though they could not actually guess the path. The illusion of a past life is, in reality, just the brain recognizing a hidden geometry. How do we move from subjective stories to hard, physical proof? If déjà vu is a real neural event, it shouldn't only happen by accident. Scientists should be able to build it from scratch under controlled conditions. This was the challenge taken up by cognitive neuroscientists Akira O'Connor and Chris Mulan. They designed a way to force a healthy brain into a state of conflict, using nothing more than simple words. Their method relies on a false recognition task. First, a person studies a list of words. Later, they are shown a new list. Some of these words are lures, words that were never actually on the first list, but are closely related in meaning. To trigger the illusion, the researchers introduced these lures alongside a distinct visual cue that explicitly tells the participant the word is new. This setup creates an immediate mental war. One part of the brain generates an automatic feeling of familiarity because of the shared meaning. But another part registers the visual cue and the logical fact that the word is brand new. The two systems clash. Another way they trigger this is through semantic repetition. If you say a common word out loud 30 times in a row, the sound begins to detach from its meaning. The word starts to feel empty and strange, yet intensely familiar. When pushed into these states of conflict, about a quarter of participants report a sudden, genuine wave of déjà vu. They experience the exact uncanny sensation of recognizing something they know they have never seen before. These experiments turn a fleeting, ghostly moment into concrete data. By producing the feeling on demand, researchers show that déjà vu is not a spiritual message or a trick of the imagination. It is a physical, reproducible reaction, a predictable error in how we monitor our own minds. While most people experience déjà vu as a brief, harmless quirk of a healthy brain, there are times when this familiar sensation serves as a medical warning sign. In temporal lobe epilepsy, a sudden, overwhelming wave of recognition can function as an aura, the brain's initial announcement of an impending seizure. These clinical episodes feel remarkably similar to everyday déjà vu, but they carry distinct physical signatures. An ordinary episode of déjà vu usually dissolves within 10 seconds. A seizure aura can stretch from several seconds to several minutes, sometimes recurring multiple times a day. It also rarely travels alone. Pathological déjà vu is frequently accompanied by other sudden neurological disruptions, such as unprovoked fear, strange olfactory hallucinations, altered consciousness, or involuntary physical behaviors like repetitive lip-smacking. To isolate the exact origin of these signals, French neurologist Frédéric Bartholomé conducted intracerebral stimulation studies on epilepsy patients. By applying mild electrical currents directly to different structures within the brain, Bartholomé discovered that stimulating the rhinal cortices, specifically the perirhinal and entorhinal regions, was far more effective at triggering sudden déjà vu than stimulating the hippocampus itself. This identified the rhinal regions as the primary generator of the familiarity-driven illusion. When these episodes occur spontaneously during a seizure, electroencephalogram recordings capture a distinct neurophysiological signature. The structures of the medial temporal lobe display a rapid increase in synchronization, locking their electrical rhythms together as the familiarity circuit misfires. Functional neuroimaging confirms that this pathological storm engages the exact same pathways used during everyday recognition, only with far greater intensity and duration. This clinical overlap provides researchers with a direct window into how our neural networks construct reality. Yet for the vast majority of people, these medical findings should bring clarity rather than alarm. Experiencing a fleeting sense of familiarity while drinking coffee or walking down the street is simply a sign of an active, healthy mind. Isolated déjà vu is not a medical diagnosis. It is just a brief, normal wobble in a complex biological machine. In 1876, a French philosopher named Émile Boirac wrote an open letter to the Revue philosophique de la France et de l'étranger. In it, he proposed a simple French label for a baffling human experience: déjà vu, meaning already seen. For nearly a century and a half, that term has captured a feeling that continues to defy easy categorization. Long before scientists could peer inside the temporal lobe, humans looked to the supernatural to explain this sudden striking wave of recognition. People interpreted the sensation as a form of precognition, a soul's lingering memory of a past life, or a sudden temporary glitch in the design of reality itself. Even today, in our age of neural mapping and high-resolution brain scans, these metaphysical interpretations persist across online forums and popular culture. This endurance reveals a profound human urge to assign grand meaning to moments of uncanny familiarity. Modern science has successfully traded spirits for synapses. We have virtual reality programs mapping spatial geometry, visual delay tasks mimicking sensory lag, and prefrontal conflict monitors capturing real-time cognitive errors. Yet, even with these advances, no single theory owns the entire phenomenon. If you ask a neuroscientist which model is the absolute definitive truth, they will admit that the case remains open. Rather than a single master switch in the brain, several distinct pathways likely produce similar sensations. A forgotten layout in an antique shop, a split-second delay in visual processing, or a brief electrical surge in the temporal lobe might all lead to the exact same mental destination. Science can describe the neural mechanics, but it does not fully exhaust the feeling itself. Major questions still hang in the balance. Why do some individuals experience this phenomenon multiple times a month, while others live their entire lives without a single occurrence? And why does a harmless biological error feel so incredibly heavy with emotional significance when it hits us? These unresolved details remind us that the brain is still a frontier of mysteries. Ultimately, déjà vu places us at the boundary where objective biology meets subjective wonder. The experience is undeniably strange, yet it remains entirely biological. It is a genuine mental event, a harmless wobble in a complex biological machine. But the forgotten past it promises is a beautifully constructed trick, an illusion of time, created by a brain that has momentarily lost its place in the present. Ultimately, déjà vu is more than a momentary glitch. It is a window into the mind's silent choreography. It reveals that our reality is constructed, moment by fragile moment, by a brain struggling to map time. When it happens next, you aren't just remembering, you are watching your own consciousness at work. How often do you experience this sensation? Join the conversation in the comments.